The first time Samuel King saw the deer stand up like a human, it wasn't the antlers that terrified him. It wasn't the way its bones cracked as it rose. It was the voice, because the thing standing beneath the moon in Deep River County Park spoke with the voice of his dead mother. And 3 weeks later, the entire town of Hobart acted like none of it had ever happened. Welcome back, everyone. Tonight's story isn't just about monsters in the woods. It's about family secrets. The kind that sit buried for decades. The kind that survive funerals. The kind that wait patiently for someone to come home. Because sometimes the most frightening thing isn't what hides in the darkness. It's discovering that the people you trusted may have been hiding the darkness from you all along. So settle in, turn down the lights, and come with me to a small town in northwest Indiana where something impossible may have been watching from the tree line for generations. Before we continue, kindly like this video, subscribe, and tell me in the comments where in the world you're watching from and which part of the story hit you the hardest. I believe this story found you today for a reason. Now, let's get back to the story. It was late November in Hobart, Indiana, the kind of cold that settles into the ground before winter fully arrives. The trees around Deep River County Park stood bare against gray skies. Church parking lots sat half empty. Christmas lights had started appearing on front porches, and every morning, a thin layer of frost covered the quiet streets. From the outside, Hobart looked like the kind of town where nothing truly terrible could happen. The kind of place where people knew their neighbors. The kind of place where families stayed for generations. But appearances can be dangerous, especially in towns with long memories. 3 weeks after his mother's funeral, Samuel King returned home. He hadn't planned on staying long. The goal was simple: handle the paperwork, sell the George Earl house, move on. The house had belonged to his family for longer than anyone could remember, and after his mother's death, it became his responsibility. Officially, she had fallen down the stairs. That was what the police report said. Accidental death, case closed. But Samuel couldn't shake one detail. When they found her body, her fingernails were packed with wet black mud, and according to the coroner, there had been no mud anywhere inside the house. In the months before her death, Samuel's mother had become increasingly afraid. Not of people, not of burglars, not of illness. The deer. She talked about them constantly. She claimed they watched the property. She claimed they gathered at the edge of Deep River County Park every night. She claimed they were getting closer. Most people assumed grief or age had affected her mind. Even Samuel wasn't sure what to believe. Then he listened to the voicemails she left before she died. 11 messages, all recorded within the final week of her life, and every single one ended the same way. Don't let the deer inside. The drive back into Hobart felt strangely normal. Samuel stopped at Montego Bay Grill, filled up his truck, passed familiar churches, schools, and baseball fields. For a few hours, he almost convinced himself that everything would be fine. Then he unlocked the front door of the George Earl house and immediately smelled wet leaves. Every door inside stood open except one, the old nursery upstairs, the room his mother had kept locked for more than 30 years. At the time, Samuel thought the locked nursery would be the strangest thing he found in that house. He was wrong, because before the week was over, He would discover why people in Hobart refused to talk about Deep River County Park, why his mother spent decades terrified of the woods, and why on a freezing night beneath a full moon, a deer would stand up like a human and call him by name, and to understand how that happened. We need to start with the first night Samuel spent alone inside the George Earl house. Samuel barely slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he imagined something standing outside his bedroom window, watching, waiting, listening. The house creaked constantly. Old houses always made noise, but this felt different, intentional. Around dawn, he finally got up and called the only family member he still trusted, his Aunt Linda. She answered immediately, as if she had been waiting for the call. The moment Samuel mentioned the nursery and the strange tracks, silence filled the line. Then he heard her breathing change. "Sam," she said quietly, "you need to leave that house." "What aren't you telling me?" Another long pause. Then she said something that made his stomach drop. "Your father didn't abandon you." Samuel froze. His entire life, he had been told that his father walked away before he was born, that he simply disappeared. "What do you mean?" Linda's voice trembled. "He vanished near Deep River County Park 40 years ago. Your mother never wanted anyone talking about it." The line suddenly went dead. No goodbye, no explanation, just silence. The conversation haunted him all day, so he started digging. The Hobart Historical Society sat inside an aging brick building downtown. Dusty records lined shelves that hadn't been touched in years. Samuel spent hours reading newspaper archives. At first, the disappearances seemed unrelated. Hunters, campers, teenagers, a retired teacher, a local mechanic, different decades, different circumstances. But every case shared one detail: Deep River County Park, again and again and again. Then he found witness statements. Several described deer behaving strangely before the disappearances, standing motionless for hours, watching people, following hikers through the woods. One report from 1978 chilled him completely. A teenage boy claimed he saw a deer standing upright between the trees. Nobody believed him. 3 days later, he disappeared. That evening, Samuel returned to the George Earl house. The locked nursery pulled at his thoughts like a magnet. After nearly an hour of hesitation, he forced the old lock open. The room smelled of mildew and wet earth. Dust covered everything. Yet one section of the wall looked different, newer, almost hidden. Behind loose paneling, he discovered a narrow compartment. Inside were dozens of yellowed photographs. His hands shook as he flipped through them. Town leaders, church elders, business owners, all standing beside an enormous deer. A deer balanced on 2 legs, like a man. On the back of one photograph were 4 words written in faded ink: Deep River Pact, 1978. Samuel's blood ran cold, because standing in the front row were his parents, smiling. That night, reality began to crack. The house groaned around him. Footsteps echoed upstairs. Doors opened and closed on their own. Dark shapes moved across the hallway walls. At midnight, he heard something walking through the nursery. Not feet, hooves, heavy, deliberate, slow enough to make sure he heard every step. Thud. Dood. Dood. Samuel grabbed a flashlight and rushed upstairs. The nursery door stood slightly open. It had been closed moments earlier. Then the lock clicked by itself. The door slowly swung inward. The room was empty. Completely empty. Samuel swept the flashlight beam across the floor and nearly dropped it. Fresh, muddy hoofprints circled his bed, round and round, as though something had stood there watching him sleep. The prints were still wet, still dripping. Then he noticed the message on the wall, written in black mud, large enough to fill the entire room. "We remember your blood." At that moment, Samuel found himself wondering how many people spend their lives carrying family secrets they never asked for. How many inherit fears they don't understand. How many discover that the people they trusted were hiding something terrible. And if you've ever experienced something that made you question everything you believed, kindly like this video, subscribe, and tell me in the comments where in the world you're watching from and which part of the story hit you the hardest. I believe this story found you today for a reason. Now let's get back to the story. Samuel didn't stay in the nursery another second. He ran. The flashlight slipped from his hand as he rushed down the stairs and out the front door. Cold Indiana air hit his face, but it did nothing to calm the panic rising inside him. Without thinking, he drove toward Deep River County Park. The message on the wall, the photographs, the hoofprints, none of it made sense. But somewhere deep down, Samuel knew the answers were waiting in those woods. The fog was thick when he arrived. Moonlight filtered through bare branches. The forest was silent. Too silent. Then he saw them. Deer. Dozens of them. Standing motionless among the trees. Watching him. Not grazing. Not moving. Watching. One stepped forward. Its front legs bent unnaturally.
Its spine cracked. Bone shifted beneath skin. And slowly, impossibly, it stood upright. Samuel stumbled backward. The creature towered over him. Its body was thin and human-shaped. Its antlers stretched toward the moon, and when it opened its mouth, his father's voice came out. "Your mother didn't die 3 weeks ago, Samuel." The words hit him like a physical blow. The creature tilted its head. "Your real mother died when you were 6. Samuel couldn't breathe. No, the thing that raised you wasn't her. Images flooded his mind. Birthday parties, Christmas mornings, family dinners, every hug, every smile, every memory. The creature had been there, watching, pretending, wearing her face. His entire childhood suddenly felt poisoned. Then Samuel noticed something hanging from one of its antlers. A wedding ring. His father's wedding ring. The one from every photograph he'd ever seen. The creature smiled. "Your father wasn't missing." Samuel's stomach dropped. He was fed to us. Behind the creature, more deer began rising onto 2 legs, one after another, like worshippers answering a call. Samuel turned and ran. By dawn, he was back at the George Earl house. Aunt Linda sat waiting in the kitchen. The nursery key rested in her hand. Tears filled her eyes. "I should have told you years ago." She confessed everything. The pact, the disappearances, the sacrifices. Every powerful family in Hobart had participated. The creature demanded blood, and the town obeyed. Then she unlocked the nursery. Inside, a hidden staircase descended beneath the house. Samuel followed it down. The smell of decay grew stronger with every step. At the bottom, his flashlight revealed a nightmare. Bones, wedding bands, driver's licenses, children's shoes. Hundreds of victims. The house had never been haunted. The house had been feeding. Then voices echoed through the darkness, crying, begging, calling his name. Some sounded recent, others sounded decades old. At the far end of the chamber, something moved. Samuel raised the flashlight and froze. The creature stepped into the beam, wearing his mother's face, and behind it, dozens of upright deer emerged from the darkness, silent, waiting, like a congregation gathering for worship. The creature stood at the far end of the chamber, wearing Samuel's mother's face. Behind it, dozens of upright deer waited in silence. Then the underground room began to move. Black mud seeped from the walls like blood from an open wound. Bones scattered across the floor started rattling. The voices grew louder. Hundreds of voices, crying, begging, screaming. Samuel realized something horrifying. The missing people weren't gone. Somehow, pieces of them were trapped inside the creatures surrounding him. He could see faces beneath stretched skin, eyes opening where eyes should not exist, mouths silently pleading for help, watching him, waiting. The creature smiled with his mother's lips. "Do you finally understand?" Samuel stepped forward, shaking with anger. "What are you?" The smile widened. "We are what this town feeds." Its voice shifted. His mother's voice, his father's voice, dozens of others, all speaking at once. Then came the final truth. It was never about your parents. Samuel froze. "What? We wanted you." The chamber fell silent. Your bloodline was the last piece. Everything that happened was preparation. Every death, every sacrifice, every lie. The creature pointed toward Aunt Linda. Slowly, she lowered her head. Tears filled her eyes. "I'm sorry, Sam." His heart sank. The funeral wasn't real. The sale wasn't real. Even the phone calls were part of it. Linda's voice broke. "We had to bring you home." The betrayal hurt worse than the fear. For a moment, Samuel couldn't speak. Then, the creature lunged. Its claws tore through the air. Samuel grabbed the iron fireplace poker he had carried from upstairs and swung with everything he had. The metal struck an antler. Crack. The sound echoed like thunder. The entire chamber screamed. The walls burst open. Mud flooded through the tunnels.